Hello, and welcome into Shopfix, a community joined together for the love of woodworking. In this episode, I want to show you how I built this live edge walnut desk. It's got the trapezoid legs, which I love. It's got the live edge on both sides, and I really like how it turned out. And I put it down here in my studio. This is where I do most of my video work and stuff like that. So I want to show you all the steps that I took to complete this project. Let's get right into this build. Shopfix. It's for the love of woodworking. Well, before we begin here, I wanted to mention that there is free downloadable plans for this project in the description below. For the first step of this project, we're going to be milling all the lumber square and flat for this project. And what I mean by milling is essentially just using machines until your boards are square, which typically means a 90-degree angle in the corners and straight and parallel on both sides, and also flat, which is basically a flat reference surface on the top and bottom. And so to accomplish this, I have a planer sled, and if you have a large capacity joiner, you can simply send your board through there and you're going to get a nice flat surface on the top of your board. If you don't have either machine, well, you can still use a hand plane and get this job done really easily. A quick note about my planer sled, I'm actually adjusting dowel wedges with those screws on the bottom to provide reference underneath the board where it's not flat, and now when I send it through, it actually flattens it out rather than just pushing it down and changing the thickness of the board. It's kind of like an upside down joiner. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little planer sled tutorial, but regardless of the way that you flatten lumber, the next step is to cut these boards out on your table saw. Now, if you're working with live edge lumber, typically you'll have one edge that you can't really work with, and that's why I use the joiner jig for the table saw. Well, after you have straight edges cut out on your table saw and your boards are ready to go, you can check the live edges for any cracks or blemishes in the wood, and you'll want to seal those up right now. I had a pretty decent sized crack in the front of this live edge piece of wood, and I just simply used clamps and glue and it sealed up real nice. At this point of the project, it's time to glue the top boards together. Now I'm using 3 different boards to create a live edge slab look. Now you could use a live edge slab, but I figured I might as well save the money and create a live edge slab myself. After the glue is fully dried, you can take a chisel and scrape away all the glue beads, leaving a nice clean surface. Now regardless if you use a live edge slab or created one of your own, you're going to need to square off the ends of the top. To accomplish this, first you'll want to measure out your 90-degree cut. Now once you got that locked in, you can go ahead and clamp a straight edge to guide a circular saw on. Now the circular saw is guided by this straight edge, but it's cutting along the line that we previously marked out. I would highly recommend using the straight edge clamp to the board, otherwise if you freehand it, you might not get as straight of a cut. Well, with the live edge top complete, now it's time to go on to create the leg pieces, and we're going to be creating a trapezoid shape out of these walnut boards. To create this trapezoid shape, we're going to first rip all the leg boards at 3 inches. If you milled these boards up properly in the beginning, all of them will be the same width. However, if some of them are slightly off and you want to get a nice uniform shape, you can simply send one side to the joiner. Well, with all the leg boards properly milled up and ready to go, we can start to create the trapezoid shape by cutting 10-degree angles and the leg boards. To accomplish this 10-degree angle cut, first you have to set your miter to a proper 10 degrees and lock that in, and then you can simply prop your board up like as shown and cut it right out with your miter saw. Now that particular 10-degree cut was simply to square it off so I can go ahead and take all the boards, line them up, and measure for the proper height. When following the plans provided with this video, your desk will sit at 29.5 inches from the floor. Now you'll notice that I'm using a stop block for this cut, and that's because I can use a repeat cut to get all the other boards. And I can do the same thing with a smaller top piece by making 2 identical top pieces. Our trapezoid shape is starting to come together, but to make sure that it comes together flush, we're going to actually cut to fit the bottom piece so that it all is snug. Well, let's go ahead and make our final cut here to complete our trapezoid shape. And you'll notice again, I'm using a stop block. In case this measurement is right on, I can just make a repeat cut for the second set of boards. With all your 10-degree angles properly cut out, it'll be time to move on to glue all the leg pieces together to create the final trapezoid shape. Now to do this properly, I would recommend setting up almost like a template for your boards so that all you have to do is slide them in place and you don't have to worry about alignment. You just have to make sure that you're gluing it up properly. To create this template, so to say, I used MDF boards because I knew that they were flat, and then I kind of just sandwiched them in between the trapezoid shape, and it worked out great. Once the trapezoid shape is glued together, you can reinforce the joints with dowel rods. To insert these dowels, first you'll want to measure the placement of the dowel rod, then you're going to want to drill in 1.5 inches into the wood along the line of the board, and then all you have to do is put some glue on your dowel rod and then hammer it in. You'll want to clean out the glue squeeze out really well so you don't have to prep too much before finishing. To finish off these dowel reinforced butt joints, all we have to do is trim off the dowel flush to the wood. Before you move on to the next step, I would recommend taking a chisel and chiseling away all the glue because it's much easier to chisel away dried glue rather than trying to sand it all the way down. After completing all those steps, you'll have yourself a pair of modern trapezoid desk legs. With the trapezoid legs fully complete, we can go ahead and move on to mounting the legs on the tabletop, and we're going to be using threaded inserts with bolts. First, you'll want to measure 2 inches in from the side of the trapezoid to get your location where you need to drill a hole for the bolt to drop down into. Once you have your marks completed, you can go ahead and drill these out, and I would recommend clamping the board down on a sheet of MDF to get you a nice flat surface and so you don't get any tear out on the other side. Then we simply need to mark out where these legs are going to sit on the back of this desk before we drill out the holes for the inserts. Once we got that location locked in, we can go ahead and take the drill bit that we used to cut out the hole and use it to mark the location of our inserts. First, we'll drill a shallow wide hole so it's easier to inset that thread level and straight. Then we'll drill a hole the full depth of the insert so it can rest inside the top of the desk. With the proper holes drilled out, I'm going to simply take a nickel and start threading this level and straight. Once you have that insert threading properly, you can go ahead and take a bit on your impact driver and drive this home. Now I'm using a nickel and a universal socket and it worked really well. But you can always buy the specific bit that you need for your specific insert. But it would save you money if you just had a universal socket and used a nickel. Once you've installed all 4 of your threaded inserts properly into the top of your desk, you can go ahead and take your washers and your hex bolts and fully secure the trapezoid legs on the top of the live edge desk. Finally, you can go ahead and sand this smooth and then finish with your preferred stain or oils. I happen to use tung oil for my desk. I really hope you enjoyed this episode of Shopfix, and if you did appreciate the episode, don't forget to smash that like button and leave a comment if you have any questions on the build. Well, as always, I wish you the best of luck with your future woodworking projects. I know I got a couple of mine coming up that I'm really excited for, but until next time, stay safe out there.